Hello and welcome to an extreme edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Let's start with the XFL.
Yes, indeed.
So I was impressed with the quality play, like we talked about. But I really like some of the rule changes. And my favorite rule change, and I'll let you talk about yours. My favorite rule change was the kickoff.
Agreed. That was fantastic.
It was fantastic because you can see that if that guy can pop that line, he's going to run a long way. So you got a chance for a really long return. On the other hand, you don't have these guys running 40 yards at full speed and hitting somebody, which is one of the things with the injuries.
Yeah.
So you made the kickoff exciting, and at the same time, you made it safer.
Because all the NFL did is make it boring by making, what did they say? It was like 65% of the kicks in the NFL this year were touchbacks.
Yeah.
And as a viewer, I don't need to see a touchback.
No, I really thought this kickoff thing was real well done. What else did you like about the rules?
Well, I know they borrowed it from the American Football Alliance or whatever that other one was, but I still love Sky Judge. I think everybody should have Sky Judge.
Yeah, I agree. I like hearing the discussion, and I actually liked hearing the guy admit that there wasn't a good angle and there really wasn't anything. See, it was a hard call, but they're going to let the call stand. I thought doing it that way really makes a lot of sense.
It does. I mean, I think the insight into the refs, sort of the accountability, we get to hear why they're making the call they're making, I think is really cool. And like I said, I think Sky Judge is a concept where if it's something obvious, where the call was missed, like the ball did go out of bounds, the ball wasn't fumbled, that the Sky Judge can just come in and be like, hey, you missed this call, let's move on. As opposed to, a big discussion and red flags being thrown and then wasting 5 minutes trying to figure something out. If it's a simple call that can be easily overturned, just let the Sky Judge handle that.
Yep. Now, the extra point thing, the 1, 2, and 3 points, that really didn't come into play in these games this weekend. I mean, I saw a couple of times we went for 2. I never saw 3. And I'm sure they're not going to go for 3 and divulge their plays unless they're in a situation where they really need to do that.
But, I mean, the extra point, I know when they moved it back, it became less of an automatic waste of our time. Because I know the percentages went down.
I'd rather do this. I'd rather have this action point.
Right, but as long as we're going to do it, I just think it's much more exciting. I mean, at first I was like, I thought it sounded really gimmicky, but in practice I think it works great. Because, I mean, I don't want to take money out of kickers' mouths, but the extra point is a really boring, it just is.
I'll tell you the one thing that I was excited about, and it didn't materialize.
Okay.
Was the game was supposed to be shorter and quicker. Now, because you had a 25-second clock, and the clock ran all the time, right?
Right.
Well, the NFL game's like 3 hours, 3 hours and 5 minutes.
Yes.
The ones I watched yesterday were between 2:45 and 2:50. So you're talking like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So it was. I was thinking we were just talking about saving a whole half hour here, because they also cut halftime in 10 minutes.
I know. I was kind of surprised too, because it didn't seem like
10 minutes runs a long time, because they give the teams all that opportunity to make sure they have that drive with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like the numbers really added. I mean, because you said shorter to me is 2.5.
Yeah, shorter to me is 2.5, 2 to 2.5.
Yeah, that's a shorter game. 10, 15 minutes. We have some NFL games that are 10 to 15 minutes shorter. Some are 10 to 15 minutes longer. It's not,
And then so all these things are coming into play, right? And I'm excited about it. Now, I watched Dallas and St. Louis, and they're kicking field goals. I mean, there's no high scoring at all. The over-under was 52, and they didn't score 30.
No.
So I thought that was a little bit disappointing. Plus, we get to see Landry Jones, the star of the league. We didn't get to see him. He didn't play.
It's true, but was it Dwayne Haskins? No, Cardell Jones balled out though.
Cardell Jones played, yep.
But I think, like we talked a little bit about it on off air, it's shocking that you can't find 32 competent quarterbacks in the NFL. So there just aren't those quarterbacks to really make. I mean, the quarterback makes the game, and there just aren't enough to go around. And I don't know how you solve that problem if the NFL can't solve that problem with only 32 jobs open.
Well, Phil Rivers is a free agent until he come get it.
Yeah, like I said, I like that idea. I think, maybe more like a guy like Jalen Hurts could go there and just be an absolute superstar, I think. Whereas he's, a questionable NFL fit, probably a good backup, maybe not a great starter. I mean, depending on how he develops, I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I think somebody like that could go be like the greatest star. They did talk about prices, though. They said their quarterbacks are getting 6 to 7 figures, but the average player only gets about 55,000 per game or per year. Is it per game or per year?
Per year. But then when you win, you get $100,000 to divide up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. If you're only making 50, and you get a chance to get another $3,000 or $4,000 at the end of the game. I don't know how many people on the roster, so I don't know how many people you're dividing $100,000 by.
True, but I mean, the average player is basically making the salary of an NFL practice squad player, minus the bonuses, obviously.
If that even, yeah.
If that even. So, I mean,
there was a guy yesterday that was playing for, I'm trying to which game it was Tampa, and he was like 30. I think he's like 32 years old. And, he was in it. He was all excited about his opportunity, and he fumbled twice as a receiver. I felt really bad for him.
Yeah. But again, I mean...
It is a league for redemption. It's a league for, people didn't get a really good look. And if you figure if the NFL drops 2 exhibition games, there's going to be a lot of players that really don't get a good look, looking for somewhere to play. And so the quality play next year in the XFL could be better than the quality play this year.
It's true. As we talked about a little bit off air, I mean, Oliver Luck was on, Andrew Luck's father, and he's the commissioner of the league. And he said they're not specifically going after underclassmen, although they don't adhere to the rules. So you can come right out of high school and go play in the XFL. And they have they only have one player currently in the league who has college eligibility left. And it's a safety at West Virginia that they thought was going to be pretty good. He put in 2 good years. He was all, Big East last year, and then he got suspended this year. So I think for suspended JUCO transfer players, like some of those guys maybe,
Yeah, or players that go out early in the NFL and don't get drafted.
Right.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm hoping that, I still think they're going to have to change some markets next year. But, and I've always said it would go into year 2, so we'll see what goes on.
It seems like I enjoyed
watching it.
Yeah, but will you watch it next week?
I'll watch it next week.
If you're home, you would like with the Steelers, like growing up in our house, obviously, we would plan.
It's not appointment TV.
It's not appointment TV, right?
That's what I would say. Yeah, it's not appointment TV. And would I tape it so I catch what I missed? No.
No.
Would I watch it on demand? No. But if I'm home and it's on, at least until baseball starts, I'll watch it.
And a few other nice things we should probably throw out. They had the play interviews on the sideline after big plays, which they had in the original XFL. And I thought overall that's something that worked pretty well. They also showed, links to the players' Instagrams and Twitters to try and, bring those two worlds together, which I thought was pretty smart as well.
Yep.
I mean, maybe you can try to find, a personality out there that you can create to be the voice, the face. I don't know who the face of the XFL is going to be.
Well, they were thinking it was Landry Jones, but we'll see.
I know, but I think
Dallas was picked to win the whole league.
Yeah.
And they're only one now.
It's just hard. Like, I think if you're an NFL fan, and you have to be a pretty diehard football fan to probably watch the XFL, you know that Landry Jones couldn't get a job in the NFL. And, Sammy Coates, they talked to him as former Steeler 3rd round pick, Sammy Coates. And like you said, he dropped 2 passes, including one in the end zone. So, I mean, I think, going back to bringing wrestling back into it with AEW, which is All Elite Wrestling, that's the Tony Khan, Jacksonville Jaguar owner wrestling, they made sure that they are trying to create homegrown stars. They didn't want to be a place for WWE cast-offs. They wanted to be like, there's so many amazing wrestlers in the world. We have the best our wrestling is on par with theirs. We can go head to head. We're not taking the people that couldn't make it there aren't coming here. Not that they wouldn't sign a free agent back and forth, but being able to create these are people you've never heard of. These are the brand new stars of wrestling, and they're here. And obviously, at the same time, AEW is paying WWE rates, whereas this league is not. So it's it's hard to imagine how they're going to find that star level, I guess, if you will.
Well, it'd be fun to see how it all works out.
Yeah.
But all in all, I would give it a B to a B plus yesterday.
Agreed.
Which is surprising because I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it.
No, and like I said, I was really impressed. Like, I know we talked about sort of, just kind of crapped on the players in a weird way. I didn't mean to in an offensive way, but I mean, I thought the quality of play was watchable. Like, with, the other football and the original XFL wasn't really good watchable football. But if you're jonesing for football year round, I think this is a good alternative.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So let's switch to baseball right now because we had a big trade with Mookie Betts going to the Dodgers.
For nothing.
And the Dodgers have an unbelievable team in the National League, and the Yankees have an unbelievable team in the American League. I mean, they're going to be so far favored to be matched up in the World Series. It'll be hard to see what happens anywhere else.
And I have a number of Red Sox fans in my life, partly from going to school in Massachusetts and partly from just they're everywhere, like roaches.
And you're depressed.
And they're depressed because they're they're angry and depressed. And I see that, like, even your national people, like your Ryan Russillos and Bill Simmonses, are basically saying, you traded him away. The Dodgers didn't give up a single prospect. You got one good potential everyday guy, and then you got an overweight, injury-riddled pitcher for maybe the second best player in baseball, who you had on your team. And it seems like whatever you got just now, you could easily have got at the trade deadline. And that's assuming you don't want to keep the second best position player in baseball after Mike Trout. And Mike Trout is, to be the second best to Mike Trout is like being the second best to Michael Jordan. Like,
yeah, it's pretty strong. I was surprised. They did get, when they reworked the trade, though, they did get 3 prospects.
Oh, they got a couple okay, I didn't see the reworking.
Because now they had to do a separate deal with Minnesota.
Okay.
To make that trade. So they made the trade that Boston was going to make with Minnesota. And they did it themselves. But they had to give the Red Sox, because the Red Sox weren't sending anybody from Minnesota to the Dodgers. So now they had to get 3 prospects, like an infielder, a catcher, and an outfielder, I think.
Okay.
But, I mean, the Dodgers, it's a big payroll. The Yankees is a big payroll. So we'll see what happens. I mean, those look like 2 unbelievable teams on paper.
Now,
you don't play on paper.
The other scuttlebutt I've heard from disgruntled Red Sox fans is they think that this ownership group is getting ready to sell. And they wanted to make sure...
Well, they could be. They probably made a fortune.
Yeah.
And the team would be a big number if they sold it.
And they own professional soccer teams that are worth a lot of money, so they're probably just fine,
Yeah, they own a lot of things that are worth good. But you know what? They won a couple championships. I guess they were worried they weren't going to pay whatever he was going to command in free agency.
It's true, but I mean, they're the Boston Red Sox, and you're the Yankees' rival.
Agree.
I mean, you're not the Pirates. No offense to our favorite, our hometown team, but like, you understand the Pirates trading their best player that's going to leave for a big market in free agency and getting as much as you can the year before he's a free agent, or 3 years before it's Garrett Cole. But if you're the Boston Red Sox, and you just raised ticket prices, and you raised your parking prices this year.
And this is being compared to the second worst trade in Red Sox history after the Babe Ruth trade.
Yeah, because I think it looks really bad. If you're the Red Sox, this looks really bad for you. And again, Mookie Betts wasn't he was a really well-liked, really respected guy.
Very popular player, yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Because again, you're going to take that money and you're going to have to spend it on somebody. So you're going to get somebody who's obviously less than Mookie Betts. So, I don't know. It's a weird one.
It is a weird one. We'll see what all plays out.
Well, in the NBA, we had a bunch of pretty much boring trades.
Well, I like D'Angelo Russell with the Timberwolves. I like that trade. I like Wiggins. Wiggins might be a better player with Golden State than he was with the Timberwolves.
I thought about that too, but he had Towns and Jimmy Butler. And I feel like, I know that Jimmy Butler's a different breed of cat, or whatever you want to call him. But Steph and Clay and Steve Kerr, they're not going to put up with, whiny NBA player. They're going to want somebody that's going to come. I mean, They'll probably be.
Maybe this year will help get his act together. But I really like D'Angelo Russell going to Timberwolves.
Okay.
I wanted somebody else with Cat. So somebody to compare him with. I think this was a good move.
I just figure there's 3 teams in 5 years, and every time somebody gets a look at them, they're like, we're good.
Yeah. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, Minnesota gave...
Minnesota sold their game out, and they scored 130 some points. So,
yeah,
to me, that's a good thing for a team that wasn't winning. A team only won 16 games.
It's true. Like we talked about off air, we have to see if, like Karl Anthony Towns, we've seen him be able to be a dominant defensive player, which is what he has to be to make this work, and see if now having his best buddy is what it actually inspires him to play defense on a daily basis, because he hasn't been.
We'll see how it goes. Maybe this one of those trades makes it all work for everybody.
Maybe. And every other trade, I don't feel it's going to really have any impact. You know? I think Miami trade had...
The ones that didn't get done.
Yeah.
Like Danilo Gallinari to...
Miami, yeah.
And who else was going to go with him from Miami, from the Oklahoma City, Miami? That would have been a good trade. That would have been a trade that would have made Miami really, really good.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened to that trade.
No, because Iguodala, it's sort of like, whatever. I mean,
he's 38 years old.
He's 38 years old. He's been kind of washed for 2 seasons. And I know you're not asking him to start or play starters minutes. You just want to get a good 10 to 12 minutes off the bench in the playoffs, and maybe he can do that. I don't want to deny him, but if it was him and Gallinari going to the Miami Heat, then it's like, oh my goodness, then the Miami Heat look like a legitimate,
Yeah.
An even more legitimate contender, because I don't want to disrespect them. They look pretty legit now.
Yeah. Well, it's NBA All-Star Week.
Now, I noticed that Twitter feels like LeBron was the way better GM, and that team is going to smoke Giannis' team. I got to disagree. I think you got the 2 biggest dogs in the league, in Jimmy Butler and Giannis Antetokounmpo on one team. You've got a guy like Trae Young, who, while I don't think he deserved to be a starter, and maybe not even an all-star, I think the all-star format is going to be something ridiculous for him. And I think he'll have that chip on his shoulder and be like balling out. And I think you got Bam Adebayo, and you got some of these other guys that, like, I think are going to play really hard in an all-star game where, the LeBron, AD, James Hardens might not actually be as motivated. So.
Yeah, I'm excited about the skills challenge. I'm excited about slam dunk for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. And surprisingly, Dwight Howard is one of the reasons I'm excited.
That's one of the reasons I'm excited, because I remember I was at Superman, so I want to see it all again.
Well, he has to be one of the oldest contestants in the dunk contest.
I would think so, yeah.
Because he's, 33, 34 right now?
At
least. Because I feel like Jordan and Dominique probably stopped before they hit 30, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know how old they were that last time they went at each other.
Yeah, it was like those two and like an older Vince Carter. I don't remember how old Kenny Skywalker was from way back in the day, but I certainly
remember my first NBA All-Star slam dunk competition I was at was in Oakland when Vince Carter won in 2000.
He was a good dunker.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. A very good dunker, still slightly disappointing as a player overall, I think.
Yeah, we'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about the skills or any thoughts about All-Star in general? Like the format?
Like we talked about last week, I think you have a problematic game. So I sort of like making the fourth quarter, first to 24, and depending on your deficit, and I think this year, especially with the Kobe stuff, as big of an impact as he's had on all those guys. And I think, between wearing, his daughter's number and all of his numbers, I do think this might end up being one of the best All-Star games we're going to have in a long time. So I think it might be a year before we see if the format really is what does it. But, I think when you have a game that doesn't seem to matter, it's nice that they're at least trying to tweak the formula,
I agree. It's a good way to tweak it and do something else. Just like, and you have to always be thinking about it. Like the MLB changed the home run derby and made it more fun, did more things, and they took members to the All-Star game, and if you win, your team gets home field advantage for the World Series. All those things are important.
Yeah.
You got to keep moving forward and tweaking things, making it fun.
Now, I think they've ruined the dunk contest, but maybe they're starting to slowly bring it back. Like, I liked back in the day when it was the Jordan Dominique. I mean, first off, you had the biggest names in the game dunking, but you basically you only got 2 misses throughout the contest. Like, it wasn't you have, 45 seconds to make your dunk, which it just, I don't know.
Now, did I read we only had 4 dunkers this year?
Just 4, yeah.
That's probably better, too. Because it's not going to be dragging out. I mean, you're going to have 2 rounds, 2 guys, and then 2, 1, 1.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see the crowd and because I know Dwight Howard's not the most well liked, even though he's on his redemption tour. He's still not well liked. So see if that affects the way he's judged as a player. Because people always bring their personal bias, even the judges have to.
Yeah, I think he's finally grown up, and I think he's listening to good people now instead of listening to stupid policy he listened to before.
I think so, and I would still say that while there's no question that the NBA has the greatest basketball players on the planet. From watching a lot of street ball and some YouTube, they do not have the greatest dunkers on the planet, not by a country mile. And I would like to see those guys into the dunk contest. I think that might be a cool way to innovate the dunk contest. I know you probably don't want to do that because it makes your product look weaker, but you have some.
Or you just make a dunk contest, and you invite the best dunkers in the world.
Yeah, because you have some guys that
World championship dunk contest that have some NBA players and some not. They just wouldn't be able to handle if an NBA player didn't win.
Yeah, I was like that would be the reason you wouldn't do it. But like where Blake Griffin, and I like him, he seems like a funny dude. He did not jump over a car. He jumped over part of
a car.
Part of a car. There are guys on the internet that jump over cars that can dunk.
Yeah, he jumped over the hood. Other people jump over the roof.
Yeah, and he jumped over like the hood, but like it was kind of at an angle, so it wasn't even the full hood. Like it was fine, but But again, like you said, I don't think you can probably bring those guys in because they would embarrass the NBA dunkers, and that'd be bad for them.
Probably so. Well, this was Oscar week. Why don't you this is your field, so give us your thoughts on Oscar week.
Well, as I think I've said to you and I've said over here, I do think any award for art is stupid, just inherently. I don't think you can award art, and I think the Oscars are too politically where not every it's also a contest for movies and film and acting where not every film it's all about politics and who paid enough money to get their name into the Oscars. So we don't even know if we're getting the best of the best. But of the films that were nominated, I do think they did a great job this year. With the films I saw, like the ones that I picked were pretty much the ones that, did well.
I was really surprised Parasite won Best Picture after it won Best Foreign Film.
Yes.
And Best Director. But then at the same time, I thought, well, they've won everything else. They're probably going to win this too.
It is sort of a weird one, though, when there's a Best Picture that it seems to make sense. I know they like to spread the awards around as much as possible, but it seems almost impossible that the Best Picture wouldn't also have the Best Director.
Yeah, well, this year it did. It usually doesn't.
No, but it's like, yes, this was the best meal, but this guy wins Best Chef. It's like, wait, what?
And it's interesting that the Best Picture and the Best Director didn't have any Best Actors.
No. But that I get, because that's sort of an individual performance, and, they like, certain Hollywood's, superstar performances sometimes more than others, and Lifetime Achievement Awards and whatnot.
Yeah, I did like the Brad Pitt win. I was happy with that one.
Yes.
And I probably, when I saw the people nominated for Best Actor, and I haven't seen The Joker yet, but that's a pretty incredible performance. And he is a really good actor.
He's a very good actor.
He's odd, but he's a really good actor.
I think he definitely, I think everyone that won deserved their win. I mean, it's like lots of things. Like I said, it's art, so it's really biased and silly and everything else, and you shouldn't be in it for awards, but everyone that was nominated, if they would have won, it wasn't like anyone that, it wasn't like a year with Crash where it wins Best Picture or something silly. Like,
well, I didn't see Judy, so I have no idea if Renee Zellweger should have won or not.
I actually haven't signed that one either, but I just, working in the industry, I've heard enough people say that she was amazing in it that I'll just sort of take that opinion and think, okay, sure, why not?
nice tribute to Kobe.
He did. I didn't know Kobe was as. I almost feel like Kobe's death was the biggest celebrity death of my lifetime.
I have to tell you, and I think I said this to you when you and I were talking before. I never knew how loved Kobe was.
No.
I mean, I had no idea. Like when I was at that game in Cleveland, the week after he died, and all these Cavalier fans were showing up, and they were playing the Lakers. They were all showing up with their Kobe stuff, and they chanted Kobe, and they just, I mean, it was. I guess he was the impact. I mean, they wore his shoes like you did growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I just, like I said, I mean, across the NBA, the WNBA, Hollywood, like just, business, like the amount of people that he seemed to have come in contact with and had an effect on is astounding,
Yeah.
Really was, yeah.
It was really interesting. We talked offline. We're still both very happy with The Outsider on HBO.
Yes.
Really, really, I think it's incredible. Really well done. 4 more episodes left. If you haven't watched it, you should jump on and catch up.
I think this is one. Yeah, you're probably going to be safe because I haven't really seen a lot of. I see a lot of critical praise for The Outsider, but I don't really hear it in circles, people discussing it. So if there is a big twist, you might. But I said they're only in week 6, and there's going to be 10, so you got plenty of time to catch up.
Yep.
And I've been watching Servant on Apple TV, and it's the first Apple TV show that I've been like, wow, this is a really cool show. The episodes fly by. I honestly don't even know how long they are, but I think they're like. I don't think they're a full 50 minutes though for a drama.
How many episodes in Servant?
Only 8.
Okay.
I think 8. But it's a very.
This is M. Night Shyamalan.
Not really. He's just the executive producer. He's not the creator, the writer, the director, or anything. So.
Oh, okay. Because their positioning is M. Night Shyamalan, and that's why I was going to watch it.
That's why I didn't want to watch it.
I'm always he swings and misses a lot, but when he makes contact, he's awesome.
Yeah, I think he's more like Sham the Sam and whoever that guy is. He's like a one-hit wonder more so than a true.
Well, he's a 2-hit wonder. Success and Unbreakable. I gotta get 2.
Maybe I'm judging Unbreakable by the things that have come after Unbreakable, and the way they sort of fit together. And I had some issues with Unbreakable as well. But I mean,
I'm still taking those 2. I'm throwing away The Village. I'm throwing away the one about the wind.
And the alien one was terrible. And the elevator one was terrible.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I think they needed a name to attach because Apple is really big on celebrity. Like every one of their shows, obviously, the morning show has like Aniston and Witherspoon and Steve Carell, and this is their, but this is it's a different creator, writer. M. Night Shyamalan's just the executive producer, and I'll throw my name on it for you. But it does have a little bit of his like, there's an overarching mystery, and it's getting sort of weird, but in a really cool, fun way. It's very well shot. The score is excellent. But like I said, I don't know where. I mean, I have my theories, and Maria has her theories, but I don't know exactly where it's going to go. And I think that's sort of like with The Outsider and Stephen King and all these other things. It's like, where's it going to go? Where we get to end up, with a satisfactory ending. And also, unlike The Outsider, I don't know if this is going to be a series in a traditional sense, or if it's going to be something that continues with different actors, or how it's going to go. If we're going to get 1 story, or it's going to be multiple seasons. I don't know how that's going to work.
I just feel like this is it.
It feels like this is it for a Servant.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's telling a cohesive story, which I'm excited because they're making a Knives Out sequel, which I also finally watched. And you're right, it was excellent. It was really fun. But Rain Johnson had already said it's going to be a completely different story with different actors.
Would have to be. You couldn't. There's no part 2 to that one.
No, there's no part 2 to that one. But I mean, it's there shouldn't have been a part 2 to Big Little Lies, but they'll shoehorn something in. But I like the fact that it's like Knives Out is sort of a modern day sort of Agatha Christie sort of show, I guess, would you say? Or
Yeah, that's exactly what I'd say.
and I think, just like with her, it's like going into an Agatha Christie what sort of mystery you're getting, sort of a fun, a little bit of smarmy comedy thrown in there, mystery. And I like the idea that that's what we're getting. If I go to another Knives Out movie, Knives Out 2 or more Knives Out or Forks Out, whatever they're going to go with, I know what I'm in a ride for, but I know I'm not going to be stuck with the same people again, who are great, but I don't want to be stuck with them again. So,
any memorable meals this week or last week?
Technically, it's sort of hard. We went to Bakery Bar for brunch, which is it's got a lot of really unique food. For instance, it was a waffle, right? With some sort of fancy syrup. Then there was apple butter, slices of apple, and then they had Golden Grams whipped cream.
Wow.
I couldn't finish it because it was too sweet. And then Maria had...
It's not too sweet, but
Yeah.
it's not kind of creative, though.
They have a lot of creative stuff. So Maria had... it was like a stuffed beignet with like sort of a light lemony sort of curd. And there was a toasted meringue that was Trix flavored meringue. They have a lot of breakfast cereal inspired little accoutrements to go with their stuff.
Okay.
And then their drinks, like her drink had a literal, like out of fruit, they made like a mast with like 3 sails. A little pirate ship.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And my drink was a Bill Hickok. So taped to the glass was a dead man's hand. The cards.
Wow.
Yeah, like it
Where's
was
this
just...
place?
It's on, for people listening that are here, it's off Magazine Street. The other thing they boast is if you like DeBourge cake, or DeBurge, however you want to pronounce it, Debbie Does DeBourge is by far the best DeBourge cake maker in the world. And they sell her cakes there, and they also sell her cake bites. And that way you can get just a little tiny bite of the DeBourge cake. Like a little, almost like a
What is
pedophore.
DeBourge cake?
It's typically like a 7 to 9 layer with like a custard in between each layer. And then
Okay.
and then it's like a ganache or some kind of like icing over the top of it all. And she has all sorts of different kinds and flavors, and you don't really know what you're going to get each time. I don't follow them on Instagram, so maybe they post it. But,
Well, I'm immediately sorry. I'm only going to have 3 days to eat in the world, so my mom and I come down in a couple weeks.
yes. And the only thing I can say about Bakery Bar in the negative, and then you'll see this on Yelp as well, it's not a cheap place to eat. I got a side of bacon for $5, and it was literally a giant slab of like stone with a slice of bacon on it.
1 slice of bacon.
Now, granted, it was a pretty thick, good. I mean, it was like it wasn't like your grocery store Oscar Mayer bacon. It was like if you went to a butcher shop, but yes, for $5, it was a piece of bacon.
Well, my best meal of the week was in my house last night.
I saw the pictures.
So Mom made her famous Sunday gravy. We had pasta. And we also had milk chocolate creme brulee for dessert, which was off the chain.
And meatballs.
And meatballs and hot sausage.
Yeah.
Yep. In fact, tomorrow night will be instant replay.
Yeah, that's.
The leftovers before we go to Chicago.
And then I'm sure you have meals at Chicago as well.
Yeah, I have an Italian restaurant on Friday night called Polari that I went to last night, and that was really, really good. So we're going back there Friday night for sure. But I definitely want to go to one of my dumpy Chicago places that I like that has different kinds of sandwiches and stuff. So I'll see what I find out.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds very good.
Yeah. So I'll report on All-Star Saturday night, and I'll also report on the NBA Tech Summit, which again is the primary reason I go every year. And this year, I'll learn more about 5G and what's coming and how it's all going to happen like I did last year, so I'm excited about that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like a pretty busy show then.
Yeah.
Maybe, well, I guess,
It'll be a fun show.
yeah. And the other thing people are talking about at work is there's a lot of Patriot fans and just the Tom Brady, Drew Brees buzz, whether Drew Brees retires and whether Tom Brady goes to another team.
Well, the debate I have, I think Tom Brady's so meticulous. I think Tom Brady knows what Tom Brady's going to do.
Yes.
Right? Pretty sure he knows what he's going to do. Drew Brees, I'm almost positive, is going to spend one more year in New Orleans trying to get one more shot to get back to the Super Bowl. And I'd be disappointed if he didn't. And I think the NFL would be disappointed if he didn't. I mean, he is really a good story. I always enjoy watching him.
I think he is a good story. As people point out, though, you get to a certain age and, you can't do what you used to do. And clearly you watched him play that last year. Like, he wasn't Drew Brees. And...
No, I mean, they were augmenting him with that Payson guy, which I thought was a good idea.
Yeah, but I mean, you watched him throw the ball. Like, even in the games he played, like...
Oh, yeah.
I think they overrated what Teddy Bridgewater did when he went 5-0, because I think the schedule worked out really well, and, he had some other extenuating circumstances. And not that Bridgewater didn't play well, but... I mean, Brees doesn't have the same arm as he used to. Just,
No, and we saw with Phillip Rivers, we saw Eli Manning.
Yeah.
So I'll be surprised. I think I'd be surprised if anybody picks up Phillip Rivers because I really thought he lost it.
Oh, I think he's got. Yeah,
We'll see. I mean, he got cut loose today, so he's a free agent.
Well, he's not going anywhere to be a backup.
They weren't going to sign him. I think he's a free agent in March. I think they indicated today they weren't going to re-sign him.
Oh yeah, they thanked him in the paper. Yeah, they were like, "Thank you for all your years, Phillip Rivers."
Yep. And Eli already retired.
Yeah.
We know Tom Brady's not going to retire. I don't think Drew Brees is going to retire. And with Big Ben, I think we'll know by Game 3 or Game 4 whether he should retire or not. Because, like I said, that's a tough injury. That's the one Terry Bradshaw had.
Well, he's not throwing a football as of yet, so that's not a great sign.
Nope.
That's a really, really bad sign. Although, if we get stuck with Mason Rudolph, maybe Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, never know.
And you know what I couldn't help think when I was watching? This is back to our first story real quick before we leave. You know who would be an awesome XFL quarterback?
Who?
The Duck.
Okay, I don't think so, but you go.
He's got moxie and a personality. Like he's a light,
But the Duck was exposed arm strength wise.
I know, but I think he might be able to get away with that a little bit more in the XFL.
I think he could if he was quicker. If he could run a little bit, I think that would offset it because then you'd have to watch for him to run. But he's not that guy either.
No, but he's got personality, and I didn't see that coming.
Personality.
That's what I thought was lacking on, even when they did the interviews with the players on the sideline. It's great to have that access, but and I realize the guys with real personality that just pop are pretty rare, especially in sports. But I didn't see any of those guys on the screen. That's like the likable. Oh, I want to follow this.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank everybody for listening and tuning in again, and your continued support.
Please rate us.
Yes. And we do want to introduce something for people that are still listening. We do want to have some more interaction with our people. So eventually we're going to, especially as we get towards the slower months in the summer, we'll throw out some poll questions that you can, reach Dad on Twitter, or we'll figure out a way to reach everybody so that we can get some answers and get some more discussions going online.
We'd love that.
So until next week.
We're out.